Welcome back, pet parent. I hope you and your family and your fur babies had a wonderful holiday. I know we're in this weird place where time doesn't exist right after the holidays and going into the new year. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here with us, being a dedicated pet parent. I have a very, very important episode today, and I have been planning this for a couple of months now, just trying to gather information and get it to you. And I'm hopeful to have a particular veterinarian back on the podcast to talk to you about it some more because we can't get the word out quick enough or far enough. And so, what we're going to be talking about today is a prescription medication. For dogs, it's called Librela. For cats, it's called Solensia, but it's basically the same thing. So, what I'm going to do is just give you a rundown of everything I have learned about this, and I'll give you some recommendations of where to go to learn more about this, because everything that I have learned about it has been from Dr. Josie Beug, who has been on the podcast in the past, and hopefully I'll be able to have her back on to talk a little bit more in detail about specifically about what to do if your animal has had this injection once or multiple times, or there's so much unknown around it. So really quickly, let me do my little spiel. We'll jump into everything. If you're new here, my name is Jessica. I am a canine nutritionist, a feline nutritionist, a holistic pet health coach, and a positive reinforcement dog trainer. And of course, I'm also the host of this podcast that you're listening to right now, the Pet Parenting Reset. And I'm so happy you're here. I'm so happy you have decided to be the best pet parent you can be and continue to learn and increase our pet's health span. That's the goal here. Really quickly, if you do want, I am still doing one-on-one consultations. My packages are changing in the new year. I'll have my existing package up for a little while just to give people a little bit of time to get used to the new packages. But you can find all of that at jessicalfisher.com, also linked in the show notes. So let's get into Librela and Solensia. So right off the bat, I'll give this to you again at the end, but petadvocare.com is a website you can go to learn more if you have more questions, and I'm sure you will, because this is a very complex topic. And again, all of this information I have been learning over the past few months from Dr. Josie Beug. So Librela is what it's called for dogs. Solensia is what it is called for cats. And it's considered by the FDA a biologic. And a biologic is considered the same thing as a vaccine. This is a monoclonal antibody. It's the same class as Cytopoint. So one of the biggest problems here is that the pharmaceutical reps are promising that there are absolutely no side effects. So veterinarians who don't have the time, energy, whatever, to do their own research, who trust their pharmaceutical reps, are believing that there are absolutely no side effects and don't understand when patients come back in with all of these adverse reactions. They're not connecting the dots because, oh my gosh, the pharmaceutical company says there's absolutely no side effects. What it is a once a month injection for arthritis, and it's intended to be received indefinitely, which to me is the biggest red flag, right? We should never, ever, ever, unless outside of, a type 1 diabetic who literally cannot live without insulin, and maybe a couple of other cases that I just can't think of off the top of my head, we should not be ever considering a pharmaceutical for life. That does not make sense. It makes sense to their pocketbooks, but it doesn't make sense to our health or to our pet's health. And unfortunately, and one of the both cool things but also really scary things that I learned is that different countries are getting different package inserts. Now, you probably, if you have been offered this for your pet, maybe the first time they get it, you're like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle, right? But hear me out, because there's so much going on. And at the end of this, while I was preparing for this, the FDA actually issued a warning letter to veterinarians on this drug. So there is hope that our veterinarians are going to learn that This is not the miracle that they were sold, basically, by the pharmaceutical companies. So the reality is there are so many adverse events being reported. But what is it first? So it is a genetically engineered protein created using recombinant DNA specific to different things in the body. So right now, what it is doing is it's binding, to nerve growth factor and creating biologically inactive nerve growth factor. And by doing this, it is reducing or eliminating the pain of arthritis. Really interestingly, and I just want to throw this in, I was listening to Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib, who, when the FDA came out with their warning letter, did like a quick, 12-minute video, which I wish I could publish for you on here, but I don't know that I have the rights to do that. So what I can do is put the link in the description or in the show notes. So if you want to go watch that, you can. I'll put the link to Instagram. Thank you. But one of the things I heard Dr. Karen Becker say on this live that was so interesting to me is that she has had reports of veterinarians who, because they did not do their research and they don't understand what this actually is and how this actually works, have been using it in place of NSAIDs. So for all kinds of pain, not just arthritis. And that is one of the most scary things I've heard, because it is absolutely not a replacement for NSAIDs in any situation. It was only designed, by the way, this medication was originally brought for humans and failed. So the FDA said, no, we're not doing this. You can't do this. And so they just relabeled it, rebranded it, and are giving it to pets now. So there are so many side effects listed in the package insert, not necessarily in the one in the United States. So I think that one they have continually been changing up. But if you go to like the ones from Europe, according to Dr. Josie Beug, there are so many side effects listed. Increased BUN, lethargy, vomiting, anorexia, lameness, cough, bacterial skin infections, injection site reaction, UTIs, dermatitis, dermal masses, redness, cysts, pain on injection, urinary incontinence, increased drinking and thirst, ataxia, lack of coordination, seizures, anaphylaxis, diarrhea, and death. So in the body, this is a foreign protein. And it is a large antibody that creates a large antibody antigen process. Say that 5 times fast. It is making the nerve growth factor biologically inactive in the body. And one of the scarier things, again, in all of these side effects that are being seen is that the theory here is that the only thing nerve growth factor is doing is pain and weakness. That's all that it's controlling. And so when it inactivates nerve growth factor, it's removing the pain and weakness of arthritis. The reality is nerve growth factor does so much more. It regenerates everything in the joints and so many things we actually don't even know yet that nerve growth factor does. We're constantly learning new things that it does. And so it's inactivating everything else. Especially hate to hear younger animals being given this, because you're inactivating nerve growth. You're inactivating all of it in the body. And we don't have long-term studies on it to know if it's reversible. At this point, so many animals, so many dogs, and I'm sure cats, but I think it is more prevalent in dogs right now. I think by that I mean I think more dogs are receiving Librela and not as many cats are receiving Solensia, though I don't know. That could be changing. It could just be that people are more aware and paying attention to what's going on with their dogs. I think that often is a case with our pets, and I've talked about that before on the podcast as well. So again, according to Dr. Josie Beug, nerve growth factor is a peptide. We actually know very little about it, but we do know that it is involved in the maintenance, repair, and neuroplasticity in joints, in heart tissue, and it does seem to cross the blood-brain barrier. And so, by the way, Just a reminder, Librela, Solensia are inactivating this. So what happens when we introduce these really large foreign proteins into the body? Well, because that's what a monoclonal antibody does, it creates immune reactions. And so there are 4 different types: type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4 of immune-mediated reactions. And this one is causing problems all over the body. She also is very, very clear that comorbidities are not studied. So any of the packaging inserts, even the one in the United States, very clearly says that it is only for animals that do not have any other disease processes going on. That's kind of scary because I would imagine many of these animals actually do. That's the world we live in, right? Actually, and I was wrong about Europe having the most extensive package insert. I wrote this down because it was important to me. The most thorough package insert is actually from Canada. The next one is in the UK. And then, according to Dr. Josie Beug, in the United States, it pretty much mostly says, we don't know. They are basically passing off, they have no liability. It hasn't been studied. We don't know, kind of thing, in the packaging inserts. So what has happened over the past almost year is that a group of people, including Dr. Josie Beug, who I was just talking about, where I've learned all of this information from, have been putting together, gathering data from people whose pets have been on this medication, who have been given this injection. And so the statisticians have combed through all of the data. These are the most reported side effects: increased thirst, increased urination, lack of efficacy, meaning that it doesn't work, lethargy, incontinence, death by euthanasia, vomiting, ataxia, seizures, anorexia, dogs dying within hours of receiving the injection, within hours or days, partial or complete paralysis, progressing to incontinence, seizures, and death, sudden blindness, dementia, lupus, and other autoimmune conditions. So one of the things when I was listening to Dr. Beug on Dr. Judy Morgan's podcast, she was saying our best hope right now is if your pet has received this injection, best outcome, the best we can do right now is to keep your pet alive for a month for it to wear off in the hopes of going back to normal. If your pet has had more than 1 injection, there's a half-life calculator on the website, which again is petadvocare.com, but it's not necessarily the same for every pet. It may work once or twice, and then it may not work anymore. And there are so many very serious side effects that for her, and I think for me too, it's just not worth it. I mean, of course, for you have to make that decision for your pet. But what I do want to do is say that, again, the FDA did issue a letter to veterinarians. It was on, I want to say December 17th or 18th. Actually, let me pull it up here. I'm sorry, December 16th. And it says, and this is on the FDA.gov website, FDA notifies veterinarians about adverse events reported for Librela. And here is the letter. Dear veterinarian, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Center for Veterinary Medicine has completed an evaluation of adverse events reported in dogs of various ages treated with Librela. The adverse events identified and analyzed include ataxia, seizures, other neurologic signs, including but not limited to paresis, recumbency, urinary incontinence, polyuria, and polydipsia. In some cases, death, including euthanasia, was reported as an outcome of these adverse events. The FDA is making available reports containing summaries of clinical signs reported for Librela in the CVM FOIA electronic reading room. Drug information. The FDA approved Librela, a monoclonal antibody drug used for the control of pain associated with osteoarthritis in dogs, on May 5th, 2023, and it was introduced to the marketplace later that year. Prior to approval, the FDA reviewed available studies and other data on Librela and determined Librela to be safe and effective for its intended use for control of pain associated with osteoarthritis in dogs. Librela is dosed by weight and labeled for subcutaneous injection once a month. What should a veterinarian do if a patient treated with Librela has an adverse event? If a dog under your care experiences an adverse event while receiving Librela, the FDA encourages you to report it to Zoetis, the drug sponsor, and gives the phone number. Drug sponsors are required to submit reports of adverse drug events to FDA. If you prefer to report directly to FDA, please see fda.gov/report animal AE. When reporting adverse events to the FDA and/or Zoetis, please include, if available, a full medical history, how many times the dog has received Librela, and the lot number on the vial used. Where can veterinarians get more information about the adverse events that have been reported to the FDA? The FDA is posting reports containing adverse drug event information for Librela on a rolling basis in the FOIA reading room for CVM. If the agency has additional information to share, it will be made available. Additional information. The FDA monitors the safety profile of all animal drugs after they reach the market, as widespread use of a drug in a large number of patients may uncover adverse events not observed prior to approval. Meaning your pet is the experiment. And I'm not saying that, they're saying that. Pharmaceutical companies, drug sponsors, are required to report all cases of adverse events they receive from the public, including pet owners and veterinarians, to the FDA. The agency evaluates adverse events and other safety information when it becomes available. And it goes on just a little bit, not much. Now, of course, Zoetis has their own response, and it says, "We continue to have the utmost confidence in the safety and efficacy of Librela." Go figure. So basically, again, Dr. Josie Beug is the one that I have been getting so much of this information from. And following on this issue, I believe Solensia is the exact same thing for cats. I am hoping the FDA also issues a warning for Solensia. You can go to petadvocare.com, petadvocare.com, if you would like to learn more. And, this is an ongoing thing. It's really, of course, sad to me that our pets are the experiment most often, because this, in my opinion, especially knowing that it was disapproved for humans, it should never have been approved for our pets. The adverse events being listed in packaging in other countries and not in the United States is terrifying. I think we're seeing so many people are waking up to the fact that other countries definitely have their citizens' best interests at heart, more so, maybe not completely, more so than agencies in the United States do. And we have to be constantly looking and researching and doing our own research and figuring things out and doing what we feel is best for our pets and for ourselves. So with that, I just, again, I hope to get Dr. Josie Beug back on to talk about this some more. As she said, the best we can hope for right now, if your pet has received an injection of Librela or Solensia, keep them alive for the month so that it has time to wear off. And we cross all of our fingers and toes and hope that the pet does get back to normal. Unfortunately, that's not what she and other people in the field are seeing with this particular pharmaceutical. So, yeah, there's that. There's so many other things that we can do in relation to arthritis and osteoarthritis. Namely, some of the things that I would start with, of course, when I work with a client one-on-one, I am always looking for, I'm looking at that individual's symptoms and needs. And so it can vary, but I'm always looking to create an anti-inflammatory diet. I am using very strategic supplementation, high doses of omega-3s, again, for anti-inflammatory properties, potentially like turmeric or curcumin. Full spectrum hemp extracts are amazing for helping manage pain. Medicinal mushrooms for inflammation and for overall immune support, because what we really need to do is support the body and not attack the symptoms. And I know I say this all the time, and maybe I sound like a broken record, but that is always the case. Supporting the body, supporting the immune system, providing an anti-inflammatory body, creating an environment that is anti-inflammatory, creating a diet that is anti-inflammatory. That is going to be some of the best things we can do. And then we can also look at other modalities like pulsed electromagnetic frequency, acupressure, acupuncture. There are lots of other modalities that we can look at that are very beneficial for pain. So with that, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Instagram is usually the best place to do that. And I sincerely want to give my deepest sympathy to anyone who trusted their veterinarian to give this pharmaceutical to their pet and their pet has suffered because of it. It breaks my heart. So with that, I will talk to you guys next week. I have a guest next week. It's a very, very fun and exciting episode. I please don't miss it. You're going to want to catch it right away as soon as it airs. It is very much the day it airs. It is about that day. So please set your reminders for January 7th. That episode is with Amanda Wilborn of The Nautical Dog, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. So with that, I hope you and your fur babies had a wonderful holiday, and I will talk to you next